You are about to enter Chuck versus the podcast, the place for people who love Chuck and the people who work on Chuck. The only show that takes you behind the scenes with the stars.
Yvonne Strahovski.
Zachary Levi. Joshua Gomez.
Ryan McParland.
Adam Barber.
Sarah Lancaster.
Interactive interviews.
Julia Ling.
Phil Clemmer.
All the cast.
Dixon High. Tony Hale. Scott Krinsky. Mark Christopher Lawrence.
Anita Friederici.
Fun hosts.
This is Mel. This is Liz. Now you can see how wacko we are.
The writers.
Allie Adler. Scott Rosenbaum. Zev Barrow.
The editors.
Matt Barber. Jeff Granville. Kevin Mock.
Contests.
We are giving away a Chuck press kit.
The directors.
Jason Ensley. Norman Buckley.
The guest stars.
Steve Austin.
Kristen Group.
The music.
This is Tim Jones.
Guest hosts.
I'm Kaylee from Toronto.
Conventions.
Lights come up, and here comes Jeffster out on stage.
Set visits.
This is the guy right here.
And much more. Are you ready? This is Gray.
This is Mel.
This is Liz.
And we want to welcome you to Chuck versus the Podcast, episode 49 for Friday, April 9th, 2010. In case you missed it, last week we released 2 episodes back to back, including an exclusive interview with writer Matt Miller, who wrote Chuck versus the American Hero. And this week we'll also be bringing you 2 episodes, one today and one tomorrow. The one today focuses on our discussion of Chuck versus the other guy, plus the latest Chuck news and spoilers. Episode 50, tomorrow, features Mel's report from WonderCon, which is going to be awesome.
It was awesome, but we'll save that for tomorrow. The overnight ratings for Chuck versus the other guy are in, and they're pretty much on par with last week's ratings. There was a slight uptick in overall viewers, with 5.79 million fans turning in to watch the original season finale of Chuck. And the demo, the 18 to 49 demo, stayed the same at 2.1. So it was level from week to week, which a few commenters on ChuckTV.net pointed out that Chuck was up against the last part of the NCAA basketball championship game on the West Coast. So they were saying that may have hurt the ratings a little bit, and we're praising Chuck for having stayed strong, stayed level with last week under that kind of competition, which that does make sense. And it hadn't occurred to me that would impact the ratings. So good call, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like another, decent ratings week for Chuck. And we look forward to seeing that pattern continue where it rises like we saw last season.
I'll take an uptick.
I'll take an uptick.
I'm confident that it will too.
Mm-hmm.
And in other news, Yvonne appeared in a beautiful photo shoot for a French magazine Gala, where she models some of the hot fashion trends for spring. You could visit YvonneStrahovski.net for the full set of scans. And Yvonne was also a guest on last week's edition of G4's Attack of the Show. And although the interviewer was less than savory, she handled herself pretty well. And we were treated to some exciting clips from episode 313, Chuck versus the other guy, and episode 314, Chuck versus the Honeymooners. She also fesses up on why she's not attending WonderCon. She has Lakers tickets. I hope they're courtside.
I would guess they are.
It was pretty cute. She said that maybe it wasn't so much for the basketball, more for the pretzels. But she said she was spending some time with her friends, so
yeah,
that's cool. But the scene they showed from Chuck versus the Honeymooners, that was pretty cool.
Cool.
You can sit through the rest of the interview. It's worth seeing for those clips alone.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we mentioned, E!Online's annual Save One Show poll is down to the final 5, and Chuck is still a contender. So you can vote as often as you wish. I think I've had trouble voting more than once in a day, but other people have reported that they can just refresh and vote again. So test, and your mileage may vary, but be sure to stop by and at least put in 1 vote per day. And let's make sure that I heard that Chuck is near the top, and I don't know how they knew this because I couldn't see statistics anywhere, but somebody said that Chuck was not quite on top, so they do definitely need your votes on that Save One show. And you can also follow Kristen on Twitter because there's some extra functions that can be enabled on Twitter. Something I don't know. They like to do that to get more people following them on Twitter. But hey, let's support Chuck any way we can. And speaking of supporting Chuck any way we can, we also want to remind you about our Chuck Declassified campaign. And I must say that there have been some fun ads that have been coming in, and Mel's been posting a few of them on Twitter. And have you also been putting a few on the site?
Not yet. I wanted to wait until we had a pretty good collection before we shared them. But there's some really creative stuff. I'm proud of you guys, Chucksters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have me laughing.
Yep. So definitely make sure you follow chucktv.net on Twitter for those updates. They're really, really cool. And so please, let's come up with some creative ideas. But I would remind you, I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast, but I had an experience in university. Did I mention that one about the... No? Okay. Well, there was a friend of mine who was in visual arts, and he was in a competition where the purpose of the competition was to design an ad that was the most visually appealing. And the way they tested is they actually brought a group of people around the campus at university where I was at, and they would look to see which poster caught their eye first. And the friend of mine who won this contest, his poster was a very small white card that all it said was "made you look." And he could put it in the bottom right-hand corner of a poster board. He could put it in the top. He could put it in the middle of a wall. There could be really colorful posters around it. And the one that always caught your eye was the simplest one. And so make sure that less is more. The fewer words you use and the more white space is there, the more likely it is to actually catch somebody's eye. So just a little design tip for you. But you can stop by chucktv.net for all the rules of the contest, find out what you can win, how you can win, and also some suggestions on where you can post ads for free, and some ideas for ways of structuring your ad. And let's have a lot of fun with this.
And so far, you guys do seem to be having a lot of fun, which was our intent.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's making us laugh, then it's got to be making other people laugh, and hopefully tune in.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it's worth mentioning. Somebody had a question about, why would this be helpful? Because does it really matter if I'm not a Nielsen viewer, if I'm watching live? And I think, Mel, you had a really good answer to that email. Why don't you share on the podcast what you said?
Well, I said that really this is a kind of a two-pronged approach. Yes, the Nielsen viewers are the ones whose viewing habits are what impact ratings. But by casting such a wide net, we're hoping that we're going to catch some of those Nielsen families in the people that are paying attention to these ads and maybe recruit some new viewers. Plus, it just brings more attention to Chuck as a show, which in turn we hope will draw some additional media attention like we had last year with our campaign. So it's not just about finding that Nielsen viewer and bringing them into the viewership fold. It's got more layers to it than just that. But of course, those are the people that we're really hoping to attract to watch the show, to watch Chuck.
Mm-hmm. And one person who's a Nielsen viewer has a huge impact on, what is it? I mean, it depends on the city, but one viewer watching Chuck can represent 50,000 people.
That's right. And I did want to point out that one of our commenters on chucktv.net posted today that he's been selected to be a Nielsen family using the diary, where you write down what you've watched for a week. And he's so excited because he gets to help promote his show in that way. It's not as exciting or sexy as being a Nielsen, having the box, where, your viewership habits are picked up overnight. And that's what the fast overnights are that we report on Tuesday mornings. But they do still impact the ratings. After, I think within a week of the diaries being turned in, that those are shows viewing habits recorded for a week, and they're written down in this little diary, and then they're mailed back in, and then those are added to the final tally of the ratings. So it does still have an impact, and it was really nice of him to post that. He wanted to be anonymous, so he posted under an assumed name, but he was really excited about getting a chance to support the show in a really tangible way like that. So kudos, and I'm excited for him that he gets a chance.
Very, very cool. Yeah. And I again want to mention a very important announcement, which I mentioned last week, and that is that we are discontinuing one of the iTunes feeds. So if you get the podcast from iTunes, you need to please check your iTunes and see if, check the title of the podcast, and at the end of the title, if it says Enhanced AAC, that is the one that's going to be discontinued on April 15th. So what you need to do is unsubscribe from that one, and then you can go to chuckpodcast.com and find a link to the new version of the podcast on iTunes. Or what you can do is do a search in the iTunes Music Store for Chuck versus the podcast, and you want to choose the podcast that doesn't have brackets at the end. So it will not say Enhanced AAC. And a reminder that we will always offer an audio-only version, which at iTunes is Chuck versus the podcast brackets MP3.
All right.
I know that sounds really exciting to you guys.
Yeah, that's hot.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for something to do while Chuck is in reruns for the next couple of weeks, a lot of people have been posting, of course, their reviews and several different interviews. Mo Ryan has a 2-part interview plus her thoughts on Chuck versus the other guy, and those are at the Chicago Tribune. She also just posted an interview with Yvonne Strahovski, which is definitely worth a read. So stop by there or just do a search for Mo Ryan Chicago Tribune, and you'll see her different articles. You can also check out Alan Sepinwall's review, which we like to read every week.
Mm-hmm.
And Jace from the Televisionary, he also has his review up, another one worth reading. It's always interesting to get all these different points of view on the episode. And a lot of times when I'm reading them, I get an aha moment where something that I missed when I was watching it the first 8 or 9 times. Like, oh, yeah.
Especially the pop culture references.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Now, the Pretty in Pink, that one I got.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to miss that one. We also will have the video of Zachary Levi's appearance on George Lopez from Thursday night, posted at chucktv.net. And this is one that I was supposed to have posted several weeks ago. I apologize for not doing that. When Josh Gomez was in TV Guide in the beginning of March, they posted a video of the photo shoot. And it's pretty cute. It's worth checking that out. It's on YouTube. We've got a link in our news roundup at chucktv.net. Mm-hmm. And again, don't forget to vote at the Save One Show poll.
Yep. And I especially liked Mo Ryan's interviews with Chris Fedak. Those were great.
She got a little hardcore with him.
Yep, she did.
Yeah. She's not afraid to go there. So props to her.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking about people's opinions about the episodes.
Hey, let's give ours.
Yes. Now, that was a good segue. I think that was one of the better ones.
We're getting better at this.
Yeah. So Chuck 313, which was Chuck versus the other guy, otherwise known as the episode that could have been the finale. And boy, it sure felt like one.
They had everything in there but the kitchen sink, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Wow.
They did. You know, and going back to what you said about the pop culture references, did you also catch the Star Wars one?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah. Morgan was on fire in this episode.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. My opinion, he owned the show.
It was very difficult for me to pick a breakout character from this episode because everybody was bringing it.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, Morgan, he made a case. He made a case for himself. Yeah. And now he's an official spy, much to General Beckman's dismay.
For me, the MVP was Yvonne Strahovski.
She, I see it, Gray. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think she had a lot to do. Now, I think what happens with Yvonne is we see her bring it every week. And so we just get used to her ability to do this. But if you really look at what she had to do in this episode, she really did a great job.
Yeah. I think my favorite moment was her and Chuck when she finally says, "Yes, Chuck." And then they kind of giggle together.
Uh-huh.
That was just so sweet.
Oh, yeah,
so
the huge
cute.
smiles.
Yeah. And
they're just so giddy that they're both in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
And able to say this to each other. And I saw a couple of comments about that the kiss in that scene and then at the end was not as passionate as fans expected. But
I don't know.
And then
I don't know.
a lot of other people responded, "What were you watching?" I kind of get it though, because it was sweeter.
Yeah, it was a sweet moment.
It was,
Yeah.
and they were, and somebody mentioned, well, it looked like they were about to bust out laughing.
Mhm.
Well, and I was thinking, well, yeah, they're just so giddy that
Yeah.
it's finally happening. I mean, we're
Yeah.
giddy as fans, and I think the characters are giddy too. So
Yeah, and he's sitting there in his underwear holding a plastic guitar, drunk,
yeah,
drunk and in a sugar rush from the mint ice cream.
yes,
Oh yeah, I mean that line, and especially, and this is where I could just hear as I was watching the episode, I could hear people cheering, like Independence Day, how you can hear people cheering outside. I could just imagine people cheering when Sarah said, "I fell for you a long, long time ago. After you fixed my phone and before you started defusing bombs with computer viruses."
Yeah.
Meaning
I loved that.
that
too.
basically that moment where I think the moment she fell in love was when
The ballerina.
the ballerina in the pilot,
Yeah.
and it was so awesome to hear her validate that.
Yeah. That was just such a tender moment. It was well done. No, she didn't come out and say, "I love you, Chuck," but she didn't need to.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
it was
didn't
pretty
need to.
obvious what she was saying. Yes.
Yeah.
It was in her,
My
it was in her
Chuck.
face, it was in her whole
I
countenance.
know. You're
Yeah.
still my Chuck.
Yeah.
My Chuck.
Aw.
That was so cute.
That got a
Yeah.
huge awe at WonderCon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, WonderCon, they must have loved that Star Wars reference.
Yes. Oh, they loved the whole episode.
Yeah.
There was cheering and gasping and laughing and oh my gods and
Yeah.
and yeah, it was very well received.
Just in case you're not understanding the Star Wars reference, that's of course talking about when Chuck tells Morgan that Morgan is his only team member, and Morgan says, "No, there is another," referring to Empire Strikes Back.
That was
Oh my gosh. Which, by the way, is my favorite.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. Out of all the Star Wars movies, that one was my favorite.
hmm
mine too.
Even though it didn't really end.
I know.
I don't care.
It had some good stuff in it.
Yeah, it was
And
cool.
no Ewoks.
Yeah.
I liked the
and no
Ewoks
Jar Jar
when I
Binks.
first saw them when I was like 8 or
Yeah,
9.
no Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, no Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not talking about Star Wars. We're talking
No.
about Chuck.
We're talking about Chuck.
Yeah.
Chuck and Sarah finally together.
Mm-hmm.
But what a ride to get there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to mention a couple of points. One of the things that Jace Lacob mentioned in his write-up was that in one episode, all the main characters seem to get what they want. And not only that, but in the stretch of the episode, at the beginning of the episode, they clearly don't have it. And then, bang! I mean, Morgan gets to be on Team Bartowski.
Yeah.
and Chuck and Sarah get to profess their love and be together. Casey gets fully reinstated, and
he gets to blackmail Beckman.
and
I think that should be included in the gets what he wants.
yeah, and I would have to add that fans get what they want because they get to see Chuck and Sarah together. They get to see Shaw dead.
Boy,
Right.
I could hear the cheering at that moment too.
there was a lot of cheering for that at one
Yeah.
point. Too. So in case there were any doubts. But yeah, that was
Poor Brandon Roth.
Yeah,
he just well they
Poor
said
guy.
they said they warned him.
Yeah.
He even signed on for the role that his character was not going to be well liked. So
yeah,
they weren't wrong.
yeah. And some cool things I thought in this episode. They were, I mean, some were more overt and some were more subtle, but it was all about, in a lot of ways, people listening to Chuck and valuing Chuck in his ability to be a real spy, and especially because of his gaffe at the beginning where he calls in the tactical assault. and the bill is bigger than Atlas Shrugged. And from that moment, nobody's taking him seriously. But he's the only one who knew that Shaw was bad.
That's right.
Nobody listened to him. I loved how at the end the intersect didn't do it for him, but his intelligence and his skills did.
Yeah.
Yes, that was very nice to have them spell it out for us.
Mm-hmm.
To have Shaw actually say, you can't do it because you can't flash because of your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chuck is still able to do what he has to do and without relying on the intersect.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Well, I liked when they were on the plane, Chuck and Casey told him, before you were a spy, before you had the intersect, you were smart.
Yeah.
Boy, Casey in the pep talks this season, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, and I love the fact, like, it could be because ostensibly Casey, I mean, we see him smoking a cigar. He's back in business. He's bartering for his reinstatement. He wants his Crown Vic. And so in one way we see, okay, the old Casey's back, but he's not the old Casey anymore. Not only is he giving this pep talk to Chuck and really, really taking him under his wing, but he's actually going to bat for Morgan. I mean,
right.
To think how far Casey had to go to bat for Morgan.
There's some character progression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it didn't surprise me, and I kind of wondered. Well, it was either that or go back and hang out with Jeff and Lester.
So really, there wasn't a choice, was there?
No.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Shaw becoming so unstable, which Chuck was trying to get everybody to see.
Mm-hmm.
That was so. When I did those annoyingly vague post-Olympics spoilers, I said that there was a feint and a double cross, and they were both in this episode. And the feint was Shaw telling Sarah, "Yeah, you killed my wife, but we can still work together. It's going to be fine."
Mm-hmm.
So if he takes her, he kidnaps her, we think, and Chuck thinks, and he brings in the tank, which led to that really fabulous line from Sarah. Thanks, I appreciated the tank.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah.
But they think that he snapped, that he's going to kill Sarah, and then he turns it into, no, we can work together, and they have this really tender bonding moment, which of course Chuck misinterprets, but when they're hugging. That's the feint, because you think Shaw's going to kill her, and then it turns out, oh no, he's not bad. But Chuck knows. Chuck goes with his gut. He knows something's off. And then in the end, Shaw did double cross.
Yeah. And I like that he used the word unhinged.
Yeah.
He said to Beckman, you can't go through what he went through and not have that affect you. He was right.
Yeah.
No one would believe him. Beckman was looking at him as this perfect ultimate spy. And I think Sarah was too. He's the perfect spy, the good spy. But no, they killed his wife.
And he's been on a revenge mission for 5 years.
Yeah.
Nobody else was. I think because Chuck is the emotional core of the group, he's the one who was really able to tap in to what Shaw was feeling and understand that this is not just, oh yeah, my wife died 5 years ago, I'm moving on with Sarah now. Yeah, I think it was because of Chuck's emotions that he was able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Plus Morgan with the eagle eye on the fake foo.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. I love that Morgan was one who discovered it.
I did too.
Because you really get the sense that as much as we laugh at him, he could be a value to the team in some small way.
And I think that's why I said that for me, he owned the show, because I had been so frustrated and aggravated with him, in season 1 and season 2. And this season, Morgan has gone through his own transformation and has stepped up, and he's still Morgan, but he's evolving as well. And, I think by the end of the show, he was the new old Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean. He gets his job back at the Buy More, but now he's a spy and he can't tell anybody.
Morgan, stay in the car.
That's right. Exactly.
But that'll probably be with Casey, and that's
that's
comedy gold.
Oh, and the I mean, it's a little bit spoiler, but it's a little bit not, because it was in the preview for what's upcoming in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Casey training Morgan. Oh my goodness!
I'm also looking forward to Ellie smacking him over the head with a frying pan.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the context for that?
Yeah.
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 I'm thinking drunken and decent, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well,
Since that's the running gag.
We have to mention some great scenes between Morgan and Big Mike.
Yes.
And it's interesting. As much as they were funny, at the same time, on my second or third time watching the episode, I noticed, boy, that last scene was actually pretty touching.
I thought the first scene was pretty touching, where it was kind of father-son. It was poignant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that got me. But I think I was in an emotional mood anyway, so it was because hey, we're finally gonna see it.
Yeah, and we have to mention. Oh, and I should mention just a little bit backtrack. This episode was written by Chris Fedak. It was directed by Peter Lauer, and it was edited by Matt Barber. And all three of those guys did an excellent job with this episode. Some great writing in it, some great lines. But that whole Guitar Hero whiskey scene, mixing gaming with whiskey.
Oh, and then he flashes, and next thing you know, Morgan's tied up on the floor with the
Yeah.
And then Sarah comes in, pulls the knife out of her bra. And it's off camera, which you have to think is the editors and the reverence for gaming. I think they just couldn't bear to see her cut the cords.
Yeah. Oh, and I love Morgan's line about soon it's going to go dark and you're going to be quoting John Hughes movies, and then
misquoting.
And then If You Leave. Now that song has a special significance for me because a friend of mine was so in love with that song back in, I think, the 8th or 9th grade when Pretty in Pink came out. I think it was in Pretty in Pink.
Yeah.
He literally made a cassette. This is back in cassette tape days. That it was only If You Leave over and over and over and over. And so anytime you went riding with him in his car, and he had the only car, you had to listen to this song over and over and over. And if you went to his house, you had to listen to that song over and over and over. So when Morgan leaves and you hear the scratched record as he's turning it off and say, "You ruined that song for me," it had a special significance.
You
for
could
me.
relate to that.
I could.
Is that what you're saying?
Though I have to draw a sort of tie, because I was thinking about the fact that this particular episode of Chuck I could watch over and over and over.
Yeah.
Most of them I can watch 2 or 3 times, but this one, boy, I think you just watch it over and over. There's so many different layers and so much great stuff in it.
Yeah. I had an OMG moment in this one, and maybe it's not everybody's, but for me it was, because I didn't see it coming. Was seeing that Chuck was the waiter.
Oh,
that was my OMG. I don't know.
When the guy came and put the drink down, weren't you kind of like, what?
No, because
Why are
I
we
was
pausing for this.
No, because I was so focused on what was going on that anything else. And that's the way I watch shows, is if a scene is really, I'm so focused on a scene, I don't often notice a song that's playing in the background or something that's going on behind the person, so I miss a lot of that. So, I guess that reduces me to, I don't know, ignorant status.
No.
But it's just the way I watch shows, and I just wasn't paying attention to that, and I wasn't looking for it.
I wasn't either, but I remember when the hand came with the drink, it's slightly out of focus, and they do this pause in their the big reveal of what's going to happen, I was like, okay, so dramatic pause or what's, and then I didn't really give it much thought. It was just kind of a fleeting, that's kind of odd.
Mhm.
And then to see Chuck, it all made sense.
Yeah, it didn't register. So I kind of went, oh, OMG.
Yeah, honestly, I thought from the moment they arrived in France, that was such a tremendous sequence.
Yeah.
I mean, for everything from him taking her to the place where there was a red test and that drug. What a perfect device to have her totally powerless, and only able to listen and watch. And the fear you can imagine as he's talking about killing her, as this ring guy's there, and Sarah, I mean, she can kick butt, but to have her completely powerless, and then I could just imagine when Chuck shows up from the other side of the world and he's there to save her, and the fight sequence, and I thought some people might think, well, is it believable that he could flash and then not defeat Shaw? I think it's totally believable because of the emotions of the situation. You see him look down at Sarah when the knife is going near her, and it's like all of a sudden he gets totally diffused. I do mention a possible Mystery Men reference when he reaches for the fork instead of the knife. Just possible. Not sure.
Or it could just be Chuck being Chuck.
Yeah.
I think that was just that one split second of him seeing that was just enough for Shaw to take him down. And come on, he's got, barrels as arms.
Yeah.
I had let out a little gasp when Shaw was going over the edge of the bridge and he grabbed onto Sarah. I thought we were done. I thought we were rid of him. And then, nope, not quite. He's going to take Sarah with him anyway.
Yeah. And then of course that scene where they wake up. Well, and actually to backtrack a little bit, you saw the whole reason he couldn't shoot Shaw in the cafe was he looked at Sarah and he realized, I can't shoot him because of this dilemma, because I love Sarah and she won't love me if I kill somebody.
But I have to shoot her or shoot him.
Yeah.
Or I lose Sarah, forever. She's going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be really, really interesting to see how that plays out.
I thought it was good that we did have that scene at the end of the episode where he does confess to Sarah that he had to shoot Shaw.
Yeah.
And she comes from it's been kind of black and white for her. That as soon as Chuck does this, he's crossed this line and he's no longer Chuck. And I think she's finally come to a point in her thinking and in her emotions when she realizes that, no, it's not going to be black and white. No person can be black and white. I'm using those words way too much. But she just came to a point where she was able to see that if he had to do something like that and he had a really good reason for it, he would only do something like that if he had a really good reason for it, and if the reason came from his Chuckness.
Right.
For lack of a better phrase.
Which it did.
Exactly. And so she kind of moved into a new point of view, a new perspective as well, which I think is going to be really important if they're going to have a successful relationship, which I hope they do.
Well, and it was neat because not only has Chuck grown to this point and worked through a lot of these identity issues that really he's been wrestling with since the beginning of the season, but for her, we see obviously this traumatic red test experience now comes to a head when she's able to face the demons associated with it. And
she said again in this episode that it was the worst day of her life.
Yeah. So it's almost like she has closure now. Kind of on this whole red test thing.
I do wonder how if there's going to be any continuation of what she said that or what we found out, and that she now knows that she was tricked into killing Eve.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to play that out at all. And if we're going to see maybe some distrust from her of the CIA, who she's been with, since high school.
Mm-hmm.
If that's maybe going to be the next part of her journey. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not
Honestly,
sure. I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
know. That's not any prior knowledge for me, I swear.
Yeah. So there are some other things to mention. Some great moments with General Beckman. I loved the clapper.
As soon as I saw her do that, I knew that everybody was going to be talking about that.
Yeah. And I love when Chuck says to her, "Can I speak freely?" And she says, "That's not a good idea."
Yeah. She just seems so exasperated.
Yeah.
I kind of get the feeling that she's just like, "Come on, you guys, pull it together."
Yeah.
Let's get.
And yet they make it happen. Like she seems like she's just at her wit's end, and yet they get the results, and so she has to put up with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I have to keep reminding myself that she's not there all the time to see, everything that goes on. So of course she gives an order. She's expecting it to be carried out the way she imagines it, the way she's been trained and the way she knows, it should be carried out. And so I think part of her frustration with Chuck is that, he should be further along than this. And she just doesn't know what to do with him. She's never come up against anything like him before. He's supposed to be a spy, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a spy kit.
Yeah. He's got his badge and everything.
Yeah. But she only, she calls in, once a week or whenever it is for the report. And, so she doesn't see all the stuff that we, the viewers, are seeing. And you know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She saw a lot more in this episode than she normally does.
I think she saw a lot more than she wanted to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was nice to see Sarah be the one to shut her down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that James Bond moment where they turn the laptop away.
Mm-hmm. And I really liked it that it was Sarah who turned it,
Yeah.
shut it, and told Chuck, "Shut up and kiss me." And then in the yes, yes, yes scene, she's the one who went to him
Yeah.
to kiss him. So she's finally being the aggressor is too aggressive of a word, but she's the one who's showing him that yes, she means it.
Yeah.
So, but that was pretty funny, very James Bondian.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I also liked that, and I was getting back to Morgan again, but I liked that he was the one to talk Casey into, getting out of being bimoored. His sense of complacency there and just settling into this boring humdrum life. And it was Morgan who laid into him and said, get up there. You're a spy. This is what you were trained to do.
That reminds me of another rather poignant exchange when Morgan tells Casey, "Enjoy my old life," and Casey kind of mutters, "Yeah, you do."
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some great moments.
Yeah. Before we leave the episode discussion, we have to talk about the elevator scene,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which I thought it was just funny.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You must have a secretary.
An assistant, whatever you
or
call
an
him.
assistant. And then when the assistant comes in, the Spanish coup is going to happen at this time, and then it's like
Barcelona.
But it's just like she's a real assistant reporting on the daily duties of this evil spy world.
Yeah. And so wants to, talk about the ransom and
Yeah.
it's just
That was pretty funny.
tick, tick.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny before they went down the elevator shaft there, just before they went down, and Shaw tells Chuck to trust him or something like that.
Yeah.
Or it's not going to be like in the warehouse. Just trust
Yeah.
me. And Chuck's like, yeah.
Oh, and the last
Yeah,
thing you want
right.
to do after consuming a lot of scotch.
Yeah. And then the accidental bullets going down the elevator shaft.
Uh-huh.
Boy, they This was such a good episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it was
Man.
packed. It was packed without feeling rushed.
Yeah, it's true. It felt like a whole 2-hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was a well-proportioned episode.
Yeah. Which makes you wonder in the 2-hour finale what that's going to be like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to feel like Lord of the Rings?
Fine by me. That's my
Yeah.
favorite. Those are my favorite movies. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm down with that.
Yeah. Cool. So I think that's all we have for this episode discussion.
We want to thank SyrianJunkies.de. They are the largest German language television fan site. And if you can read German and you like television, stop by SyrianJunkies.de. We also are sponsored by MovieMorons.com. It's a podcast about film where they talk about all things movies and they are not morons.
Mm-hmm.
And that's MovieMorons.com.
Very cool. And so we're going to wrap things up for this week. We want to remind you to always check the podcast site for updates, chuckpodcast.com. You can go to chuckpodcast.blip.tv for all of our back catalog of episodes, and you can also support us a little bit by doing that. Every time you play an episode at blip.tv, it helps us a little bit. Want to remind you again about make sure you switch to the new iTunes feed if you do get podcasts through iTunes. And so there may be some hiccups there on some of the other sites, like the Zune site and Podcast Alley. Sometimes are a little slow with updating their feeds. So always come to chuckpodcast.com or chuckpodcast.blip.tv if you want the latest on how to get the podcast.
And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to share them with us. We love getting your emails and listening to what you guys have to say. Sometimes you guys come up with, why didn't you talk about this on your podcast? Well, we try and cover everything, but you guys come up with stuff too, and we love to hear from you. So go on and shoot all that over to us using the email address mail@chuckpodcast.com.
And we wanted to remind you that Chuck is in reruns for the next couple of Mondays. April 12th, they will be rerunning Chuck versus First Class. And on April the 19th, it's Chuck versus the Beard. And then new episodes resume on April 26th. And that's because, as we mentioned earlier, the season finale is on May 24th. And it will be 2 episodes back to back. So they were making a little room there. So the back 6 episodes will air all in a row. And we also will be taking a little break from the podcast ourselves, but you can check us out on MediaJunkyard.com on their podcast. And we'll see you next time.
And we don't have any spoilers this week, so just want to say, until next time, which actually will be tomorrow, watch for our podcast talking about all the great stuff at WonderCon.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.